Good morning, students, staff, and any guests that we have today. I'm Jane Hofstrand, the principal here, and I welcome you to our Black History Month Assembly. Today, we will honor the contributions of Americans who throughout our country's history have worked tirelessly to promote equality and respect for every individual and group who have helped pave the way for others so that they may have a stronger voice. It's important today and always that we are thoughtful about our interactions with others and that we engage in ongoing, productive conversations about fairness, opportunity, and equity. Students, I want to remind you that this is a formal educational assembly. Throughout the assembly, you will hear and see a variety of presentations and performances. Please give your full attention to each speaker. I am very thankful for the work of our students in the leadership class, Black Student Union, and Max Scholars who have for the work they put in to plan and prepare for this day. It's so important that we have individuals who are willing to take a leadership role as we work to celebrate diversity and build an equitable school community. At this time, I ask you to please join me in thanking them for their work to prepare for this event with a round of applause. Thank you very much. And now, I would like to introduce your ASB Vice President, Tiffany Lum, who will formally begin today's assembly.
Welcome to our annual Black History Month Assembly. The theme of today's assembly is Black resilience. Resilience is defined as the capacity to withstand hardships, and today we will honor those who have shown resilience by telling their stories and the obstacles they overcame to get us to where we are now. Today, leadership in our CJH Black Student Union, BSU, will work as a team with a common goal. And together we aim for this assembly to be educational and meaningful for everyone. We ask that you please take this time to listen and learn about some of the people who have built the ground we stand on today. Now please, welcome your Black Student Union President, Kav Shivshir, as he starts us off.
Since the 1500s, Black families have lived, loved, and grown in this land that has had to resist horrible treatment that tried to take away their humanity. However, the Black community has shown resilience and hope through education and action. Today we'll look at these two areas not only to honor those who have come before us, but to take up the torch. Congressman and activist John Lewis once said, "Ours is not the struggle of one day, 1 week, or 1 year. Ours is the struggle of a lifetime, or even many lifetimes. And it's our job throughout the generations to do our part." Please listen to this video and learn about Black history.
It's February, so many teachers and schools are celebrating Black History Month, but there are still many misconceptions and misunderstandings about the past, present, and future of this celebration. So today, I thought we'd go back to the beginning. Hi, this is Mike Hines, and I'm a professor here at the Stanford Graduate School of Education, where my work focuses on the history of America's schools. What we now know as Black History Month had its beginnings as Negro History Week, which was invented by the famed historian, educator, and activist Carter G. Woodson in 1926. Negro History Week was a direct challenge to tradition. Negro, which was outdated by the 1960s, was replaced by a new generation born and raised in civil history. Black History Month emerged in its current form during those decades and is still relevant. So, is this celebration still relevant today? Well, it depends on who you ask. Critics charge that the progress we've made from the 1920s to the 2020s is largely made by history from the right. Or, worse, singling out Black history is actually counterproductive to broader efforts of inclusion. Although we may have made progress, however, research from the Southern Poverty Law Center and other sources still shows that we are far from our goal of honoring the multiple voices in our classrooms and challenging dominant narratives. At the same time, new and emerging movements for racial justice call out for historical context, which our schools simply fail to provide. Carter G. Woodson himself was cautiously optimistic that students in the future would no longer need Black history. He had three taught young ways that honored and elevated our students and told their stories all year long. But we're not there yet. So Black History Month will continue to be what it always has been: a celebration, a stinging indictment, a call to action. All year long.
Hi, I'm Ruthie Julie, and I'm the PSC officer here at Curtis. First area we'd like to highlight is Black resilience through education and art. Many times, historic America leaves out the Black community's contributions to the fabric of our nation. When we make an active effort to learn and reflect through books, museums, and teachers, we start
In 1955, Emmett Till, a 14-year-old boy from Chicago, was brutally tortured and lynched in Mississippi for allegedly flirting with a white woman. At his funeral, Mamie Till, Emmett Till's mother, had an open casket which showed the result of his torture. She did this to let people know what the lynch mob did to her son simply for the color of his skin and to symbolize the unfortunate brutality Black people faced in the United States. Over 50 years later, the alleged victim of his flirting admitted Till never did anything to her.
In the same year as Emmett Till's murder, the Montgomery bus boycott began in Alabama, when a series of Black women, including 15-year-old Claudette Colvin and Rosa Parks, refused to give up their seats to WASP-like passengers, which was against the law. All women were arrested and jailed for their courageous act. The NAACP pushed for a one-day boycott, protesting the arrest on December 1st, 1955. The success of the one-day boycott turned into a long-term boycott that lasted for 381 days, over a year. It ended when the Supreme Court ruled that segregation on the city's buses was unconstitutional. The U.S. Supreme Court made segregation in public schools illegal with the ruling of Brown versus Board of Education. On September 3rd, 1957, 9 Black students, known as the Little Rock Nine, enrolled at Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. A mob of protesters attacked them, and the governor of Arkansas sent the National Guard to prevent the students from entering. 3 weeks passed until President Eisenhower sent troops to escort the students. On September 25th, the 9 students braved a hostile crowd and walked up the steps for their first full day at Central High School.
It wasn't just teenagers who fought for access for quality education. Ruby Bridges was just 6 years old on November 14, 1960, when she walked through a mob of hateful protesters and through a door of an all-white primary school in New Orleans, Louisiana, making her the first Black American child to do so. Bridges, who is still alive today, founded the Ruby Bridges Foundation and remains a powerful civil rights activist who has continued to work for equality. In 1960, 4 Black college students came to a segregated restaurant in Greensboro, North Carolina, and asked to be served. They wanted to challenge the segregation laws. Instead of being served, the 4 men were ignored by the restaurant staff. Other people in the restaurant began to physically and verbally abuse the men for sitting at the counter. They did not leave until closing time. After that, they came back, but with more students, not being violent but silently protesting. Though they were very poorly treated, what later became known as the Greensboro sit-ins succeeded in getting many businesses to serve everyone regardless of race.
In 1961, a group of 13 Black and white civil rights activists, mostly college students, drove on regularly scheduled interstate Greyhound buses from Washington, D.C. through Virginia into North and South Carolina and across Georgia. Once in Alabama, their buses were bombed and the lives were endangered. In spite of this violence, the students were seen as merely breaking segregation laws dictating separate seating in towns across the South, and as a result were beaten, mocked, and arrested. Still, more freedom riders took up the cause, and throughout 5 months of traveling, the nation and world took notice and forced the national government to make change.
In 1963, 2 men, Bayard Rustin and Philip Rudolph, planned a march to Washington, D.C. in support of equal job opportunities for Black men and women. At the same time, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference planned a march for freedom. The two groups joined forces with a shared goal to end segregation, promote economic justice, advocate for voting rights, increase equity in education, and add long overdue civil rights protections. Together, their effort brought more than 250,000 people to the nation's capital to protest racial discrimination and urge Congress to support laws change.
In 1965, civil rights leaders planned a 3-day, 50-mile march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, the capital of Alabama. The goal of the 50 marchers was to spread awareness of voting inequalities in Selma and beyond. After a few miles into the march, Alabama and state and county police attacked them. Historians later named the day Bloody Sunday. The event was televised nationally, and people around the nation responded in support of the marchers. 3 weeks later, after voting rights legislation went through Congress, the marchers took back up their march with more than 25,000 marchers from all over the country at their side.
In response to the Civil Rights Movement, President Johnson signed 2 bills. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and 1968 ended the application of Jim Crow laws and declared that racial segregation was unconstitutional. The act ensured Black Americans equal access to restaurants, transportation, and other public facilities. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 guaranteed voting rights for Black citizens and removed any restrictions that were designed to deny their rights.
In 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King and Senator Robert Kennedy were assassinated. That summer, at the Olympics held in Mexico City, U.S. track athletes Tommie Smith and John Carlos won gold and bronze medals in the 200-meter race. While at the winner's podium, Smith and Carlos raised black gloves fists during the national anthem to protest the treatment of Black people in the United States. They also wore beads and scarves to oppose race-based lynching and wore black socks with no shoes to bring light to poverty in the Black community. The nation responded to their protests with awareness and legislation. Please welcome Mr. Evans, who will share a more personal experience of similar events.
Thank you, John. All right, so behind me, this is my grandpa, Lee Evans, and he also participated in the '68 Olympics. He ran track and went to school at San Jose State University with Tommie Smith and John Carlos, who you guys seen in the previous slide. The 3 of them made the university famously known as Speed City. And all 3 had qualified for the '68 Olympic Games in Mexico City. As the Olympics were approaching that year, my grandpa and his teammates were discussing with other U.S. Olympic athletes at the time of how to let their voices be heard on the topic of racial discrimination in America on a national stage. They helped organize a campaign they called the Olympic Project for Human Rights. The purpose of this project was not about protesting against racism in sport, but rather involved understand their calling and purpose and what they ultimately wanted to accomplish. They sacrificed so much, their dreams, their aspirations, sometimes their families, their freedoms. Some even sacrificed their own lives for the purpose of good and justice, so everyone could have an opportunity at a level playing field in America. We others like him is to ensure that kids and young adults, that's all of you guys, to ensure that you guys understand his purpose, message, and impact so you can carry it forward. You guys are really the future. You must carry the torch, but it starts by educating yourself so you all can understand the purpose of those like Dr. King, so you can carry those messages into the futures of our society. Thank you.
In 2010, Michelle Alexander wrote a book called The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarcerations of Asian Public Bodies. In it, she shared research, Aiding and assisting research operations about high levels of prejudices for Black Americans in relation to other races. Her findings led the nation to examine laws and their impacts on communities of colors. Lawmakers also looked at Lawmakers also looked at enforcement of such laws and practices that falls on the basis of fairness. In the past 2 decades, prison and police reform have been a focus of many communities determined to make a fair justice system for all.
One organization working to create equity is the Innocence Project. It works to free wrongfully convicted individuals, prevent wrongful convictions, and rework the justice system in favor of all marginalized communities. Black individuals in America have historically been among the highest to populate prisons, and among prisoners wrongfully incarcerated, 53% were Black Americans, even though that is nearly 4 times their proportion of the population. For decades, Black Americans have been subject to this mistreatment. However, they did not stand idly by, letting themselves grow accustomed to the injustice they faced. They have resisted through protests, movements, and programs, just like the Innocence Project.
Black Lives Matter protests have happened in every state in the nation. The goal of these protests are to bring awareness of violence against the Black community and push back on the inequality that the community has continually faced. The armed conflict location in the Mandela Project analyzed more than 7,750 Black Lives Matter demonstrations in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. that took place in the wake of George Floyd's death between May 21st and May 22nd. Found more than 93% of these protests have been peaceful. In cities where protests did turn violent, these demonstrations were largely confined to specific blocks. To conclude today's assembly, we hope you will see Black History Month as a celebration and a way to reflect on how people have fought for change in our nation. We hope it will be a call to educate yourself, reflect on art, join social movements, and seek policy change.
For respect and your attention today. I would like to thank Black Student Union, Black Diamond Fighters, and Stevens, and Sweater for their great and creative contributions to this presentation. I would like to thank the administrative team for hosting and supporting this event. Round of applause. We would like to listen to Rick Derby Wilson sing, which is a tradition called the Black National Anthem. The lyrics will be on the screen. You may sing if you feel comfortable. Thank you.
As Kyle so eloquently put, thank you so much to our Black Student Union and leadership who researched, who wrote, who did all of the work for this presentation. They did a ton of work and it definitely showed with this. So again, if you could give them a round of applause.